To create a world where everyone recognizes themselves in a book. To provide literature whose aim is to foster new thinking about what it means to live in the world today. To traverse borders and open minds. To present bold works of literary merit, each book individually and collectively providing a sonic progression that we believe to be too loud to ignore. These are just some of the mission statements of some of the amazing independent publishers out there who are working tirelessly every day with an unwavering passion to bring diversity, to bring richness to the world of reading everywhere around the world. Today, here at Keep It Fictional from the Moody Public Library, we want to celebrate you, all the small presses, all the independent publishers out there. I am your host, Virginia, here with my book friends from the library. We have Sadie and Corinne. And March is Small Press Month or Indie Press Month, and it is an annual celebration that started in 1996. And so here today, we want to spotlight these publishers that produce books that are constantly challenging us to expose us to new ideas, expose us to new ways of telling stories, and encourage us to take risks as they take risks in the choices of books that they choose to publish. And I really love, like, one year their theme is called Books Beyond the Obvious. And I feel like that really captured the spirit of a small press. So today we want to spotlight those small presses for you. This is our second year highlighting this event. So I invite all our listeners to go back to last year's episode where we talk about Grey Wolf Press, Charcoal Press, Roseway Publishing, and Algonquin Publishing with the 4 book choices that we had last year. So we will spotlight some more independent publishers for you today. And as usual, we hope that you will pick up a book from an indie press, not just this month, but also throughout the year. And so go into your library and demand some indie publishing from them. So we are going to start today with Corinne. So I hope that book friends will have books from a small press and also maybe give you have information. Just tell us a little bit about the small press that you chose, maybe or not, or
Oh,
quickly
joke's
look
on you.
them
I
up.
Googled this on the train.
You can look them up. All right, Corinne, what have you got for us today?
Oh, yeah, I Wikipedia'd that nonsense when I was on the SkyTrain this morning. So I do have information about my press, because kind of, again, filled with my Thursday night kind of like crisis is, oh no, I need a book. I realized it was small press book. So I went to the 52 books that I have checked out from various libraries, went through my pile and realized, oh no, oh no, these are all essentially HarperCollins. And the problem is with like many of the big presses, what you think are kind of like smaller presses are actually imprints of HarperCollins or imprints of Penguin because it's all one big giant umbrella. So I decided to do, the reasonable librarian thing, and I Googled small presses. And I got a list and I went through it. And did you know that when you are searching through Libby, so the library's ebook and audiobook and e-magazine platform, you can actually search by publisher. And so that is what I did. I downloaded 2 books. One of them, a novella that I fell asleep in the middle of, which I do not think was actually indicative of its style. I think I was just very tired. And the second one that was something kind of interesting that I saw had won the Book Riot Best Book of the Year, had won a Lambda Award, was kind of like a combination graphic essay memoir, which I thought was really interesting. And I think that's kind of one thing about those small presses, as we saw from the Canada Reads episode last week, ECW Press, which did Denison Avenue, they're willing to take a chance on formats that are a little bit weird. Like sometimes they're not a straightforward book of essays or not a straightforward graphic memoir, but something that's kind of like a combination of the both that's taking a real like chance with formats. And so this book published by Tin House Books definitely does that. It's a combination of a graphic memoir, um, Yeah. Not exactly like graphic storytelling in the same way that a graphic novel is, but there's small comics and then there's illustrations and then there's like posters. Yeah, and then there's essays and then there's listicles. There's just like a lot going on format wise, which makes it very interesting. And I can see why Tin House Book picked it up. Tin House Books was founded in 1998 by Win McCormack. It is based out of Portland, Oregon. And that is as far as I got in my Wikipedia-ing. Great title. Portland's cool. I'm sure they have many other things to recommend them, but this was the only book that Libby had in the collection, so that is the extent of my knowledge about them. This particular book, I would say, has content warnings for self-harm, content warning for suicide attempts, skin picking, suicidal thoughts, and drug use. And this is maybe like truly a great cover, and I can tell why in my like late night fugue I picked this one up. It's called The Way She Feels: My Life on the Borderline in Pictures and Pieces by Courtney Cook. And it is the author with her beautiful pink wavy hair, just kind of luxuriating like a beautiful mermaid in a bowl of soup. No, cereal. Um, yeah, as I said, this was a Lambda Award winner, Book Riot Best Book of the Year, and it is the memoir of Courtney Cook, who, when she was finally kind of diagnosed with borderline personality disorder when she was 19, despite knowing, ever since she was quite young that something she felt this emptiness inside of her. And she could tell that the way that she reacted to things, the way that she desperately needed people, was not the way that other people felt. But for whatever reason, borderline personality disorder is not actually diagnosed until you're at least 19. And so she spent this entire kind of like childhood and youth knowing that she was kind of out of step with other people, but constantly being told that she would just grow out of it. And so when she finally kind of gets her diagnosis of what this emptiness in her is, she, of course, as we all does, goes to Google and tries to find, some other people who have had this mental illness to kind of get a sense of, like what kind of stories or narratives are there out there. So she puts that into her search engine and she gets Amy Winehouse. Very talented, but died unfortunately young. Marilyn Monroe, very talented, died unfortunately young. Princess Diana, lovely, also died very young. And then finally, Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer, arguably the most well-known person with borderline personality disorder. At this, Courtney just closes the laptop and walks away. So she is a lot more than just her diagnosis. When you meet her, she says the basics. She's Courtney Lee Cook. Nicknames are Bonker, Cece, or Coco. She's an MFA candidate studying nonfiction, 24 years old at the time of the writing, blonde hair, blue eyes, 5'3", 12 tattoos mostly on her arms, and can turn anything into something terrifying, including the blow dryer, because sometimes it feels like souls are coming out of it. She has a wonderfully deft and humorous approach to her disease, of which 4 million people in the United States have. But not a lot is honestly known about it beyond kind of broad stroke stereotypes. So if, like me, you did not know a lot about borderline personality disorder, the Mayo Clinic's definition is that it is a mental health condition that affects the way people feel about themselves and others, making it hard to function in everyday life. It includes a pattern of unstable, intense relationships, as well as impulsiveness and an unhealthy way of seeing themselves. This kind of impulsiveness shows itself in kind of intense, unhealthy relationships. They have very extreme emotions and acting or doing things without thinking about them first. So some of the symptoms are a strong fear of abandonment, a pattern of unstable, intense relationships, quick changes in how they see themselves. They have periods of stress related paranoia, as mentioned before, impulsive or risky behavior, very wide mood swings, feeling of emptiness, inappropriate anger, and often this is tied to threats of suicide or self injury. So, according to some statistics, 75% of those who have borderline personality disorder attempt suicide or self harm. So, even though this feels like a and is like a very serious mental disorder, Courtney Cook approaches it with so much warmth and humor in the way that she really just wants to be seen as a person with that diagnosis and with that illness because it is part of her. You cannot separate the two of them. She loves hard and she loves fast. And that kind of love is all consuming. But as much as she has this kind of huge capability for love, she cannot extend that same love to herself. She always hates herself the most. And sometimes she has trouble knowing what parts are her, that kind of part that makes her actually Courtney, and the part that she's pulling from other people to make herself feel more lovable or to make herself feel more wanted. So she shares an example from her childhood of that fear of rejection that is so intense that it ends up pushing people away. So she knew that her friends were having a sleepover, a really big sleepover with all of her friends, and they hadn't invited her. And this was at 13 years old that her reaction when she confronted her friends was so extreme and so intense, that they had every intention of inviting her, they just hadn't gotten down the line on the phone tree to her yet. But because her reaction was so intense, they didn't want her to come anymore. And so it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, like this cycle of wanting to belong and then having these behaviors that really tend to push people away. Um, but she also finds the joy in things, sugary cereal, pink, corn dogs. She takes us through her life as a young person up until 24 at the writing of the book, which is sometimes a cycle of hospitalization, intense relationships, treatment, residential therapy. It's an exploration for her of trying to sort out who she is by talking about the things that she loves and her own lived experience, including sometimes the stigma that's associated with a disease like this. She tends to keep her diagnosis close to her chest. She has an experience where she's meeting a new friend, and this person is becoming her new favorite person. They're driving in a car together and they share a passionate love of true crime. But as this new friend is describing the works of one of the serial killer, that he was a normal person that walked among us, as if to explain all of his behavior, she says, "Oh, well, it was okay. He was borderline," as if that explains or excuses everything. All in all, this is a really wonderful look into kind of a unique illustrator and writer's life. She is very honest. She is very frank. She's dealing with really, really dark subjects, but in a way that feels really true to her. She has a really sharp sense of humor, including one of the essays, which is entitled, "Oh, to the Psychiatrist I Hate, but Who Gives Me the Good Drugs." She is frank and honest about her journey through mental illness. And I think that if you are kind of interested in learning a little bit more about something that definitely has its own very set narrative in popular culture about what this looks like, this book is such a warm invitation to kind of look a little bit deeper behind what's in the stereotypes. And the illustrations, she has very simple kind of line drawings of things that illustrate kind of how she feels inside. One of the most striking illustrations is when she's trying to explain that even as a child and as an adult walking through life, she feels this emptiness. She feels like she's an empty cup waiting to be filled by someone. And so just sitting by herself, she always feels like this black hole within her that she is not enough, that she is never enough. And she has this wonderful illustration of herself kind of floating in space with this just gaping hole in the middle of her chest. So if you are wanting to take a really good, funny, frank, honest look through mental illness, keeping in mind that, again, the book does deal with some very intense topics. Again, mention of self harm, of cutting, of picking, and suicidal thoughts. Um, you could absolutely pick up and really see into the mind of an artist at work with The Way She Feels with Courtney Cook, published by Tin House Books, distributed by W.N. Norton, I think, but it still counts because they're a small press.
Thank you, Corinne. I think you picked a book that really highlight what small presses do in many ways, bringing us those perspectives that we don't normally see, or that like try to like, maybe show something different from what like you believe, like you said, in the pop culture, or like what everybody seems to think that this is what this particular thing is about. So yeah, so thank you for that. So we are going to go over to Sadie.
All right. So the small press that I chose is Canis Major Books, and it is actually an imprint of another small press, Red Hen Press. So I'll tell you a little bit about both of them. Red Hen Press was started in 1994 in the San Fernando Valley by Dr. Kate Gale and Mark E. Cull, and they basically sold nearly all of that they owned so that they could begin publishing talented writers whose works had been overlooked by large-scale publishers. So their mission statement, similar to some of the mission statements that Virginia spoke of at the beginning, is to publish works of literary excellence, to foster diversity, and to promote literacy in local schools. So that is one of their main focuses, is bringing books and literacy into schools, and they have a program that's quite far-reaching, at least in California, to do that. Now, Canis Major Books was started during the 2020 lockdown. Excuse me. Because according to the founders, we were stuck in our houses far too long and realized we needed more books. Makes sense. I think we all probably felt that. They specifically look for active, energetic, and rollicking good stories and are open to all kinds of narratives. So the book that I chose from Canis Major is called Cursebreakers, and it is by Madeleine Nakamura. A couple of content warnings before I get into the book. It does provide quite a close and descriptive look at bipolar disorder, and also touches on suicidal thoughts and a very heavy drug use. Now, our story takes place in Astrum. And Astrum is a futuristic Earth-like world where magic is commonplace, even though not everybody has the ability to wield it. Those that do, once they have trained and received their licenses, they are deemed magicians. And as long as they don't use their magic for, the logical things, don't kill people with it, and they're more or less left to live their lives. Those who aren't licensed, or those who do use their magic in the wrong way, are deemed witches, and they are sought out and arrested by the infamous witch hunters. Now, the witch hunters are one side of the Curia Clementia. I'm going to do my best with the names. There's some names in this one that I'm not entirely sure I'm going to pronounce correctly. So the Curia Clementia is the militaristic government who controls Astrum. The other side of the Curia is the Vigil. And the Vigil are soldiers who have been trained since they were children to kill without mercy and feel no remorse. Each of the soldiers is accompanied by a creature called a Raish, not sure. Rache. I'm going to say Raish. They're kind of rush. I looked it up, and they used to be hunting dogs, I think, but in the book they're described more like cats. They often meow, so that's not entirely sure if they are just influenced by what the actual creature is, or completely different. But yes, each soldier is accompanied by one of these. They're bonded to them, and the rashes are just as deadly as the soldiers themselves. So there's a very distinct divide between the Curia and between the magicians. No one at the Curia actually has the ability to use magic. And so this leads to distrust and dislike between the two, and a steadfast rule from both sides that they never, ever work together. Adrien Desfourneaux, or Desfourneaux, is a magician with an affinity for lightning and a professor of magic at the Pharmakeia. It's a school where magicians are taught and licensed. Now, he does his best to stay out of the way of the vigil and completely off the radar of the witch hunters. This choice is not just common sense for any magician, but also one made from devastating experience. Because Adrien was not always a professor. 8 years ago, he used to be a physician, using his magic to heal people. He was good at what he did, and along with a team of other physicians, he sought to use an experimental form of mind magic to heal some patients in a sanatorium. Treatment didn't work, and it left all of the patients comatose, unresponsive. Adrien and his colleagues were all tried as witches, but eventually absolved of guilt. However, his past choices continue to haunt him, and he's in no rush at all to be deemed a witch again or to draw the attention of the vigil soldiers. So, when distracted and rushing to get to his morning class, he accidentally collides with a vigil soldier. Adrien's first thought is that he may have just signed his own death sentence. He knows that soldiers are not known for their leniency, that they will often kill people on a whim, and he believes that this may have been his last mistake. While the soldier is extremely threatening, he does eventually let Adrien go, and Adrien rushes off to class. However, the next day, the same soldier is stationed outside his class in the Pharmakeia. This alone is very strange. As I mentioned, the vigil and the magicians don't work together, and the vigil hardly ever come to the school. He asks the soldier why he's there, and he doesn't really get a good answer. The soldier is young, rude, overly confident, and so Adrien rushes out because he has an appointment to make. He goes to see his friend, colleague, and his doctor, Melise. Melise provides treatment to Adrien for a form of bipolar disorder. Her cool, ice-based healing allows Adrien to, as he puts it, keep his demons at bay, at least for a little while. The treatments, however, are never able to fully suppress the flare-ups, and so every so often Adrien has to deal with the unstoppable symptoms that take over his life. He does have support, luckily, during these times. Melise, his good friend and doctor, who continues to provide treatment and basically numb his mind so that his symptoms don't take over. He also has Casimir, a fellow magician, old friend, and the love of Adrien's life. Casimir, unfortunately, does not return Adrien's feelings. And while he did reject Adrien romantically, he has agreed to be Adrien's keeper. And this involves moving in with Adrien whenever the flare-ups get extremely bad, to make sure that he doesn't hurt himself, he doesn't lose himself to the oblivion of drugs, he doesn't take his own life. Now, at his appointment with Melise, she tells him something that actually gives him more information about why the vigil are there than he thought. Apparently, chirurgionate, I'm going to say chirurgionate, it's the hospital. The hospital has received a batch of very troubling patients. The patients are exhibiting symptoms that are very, very close to what happened to Adrien's own comatose former patients. They include magicians and soldiers alike, and no one really knows what's happening to them or how to treat them. Now, Melise discourages Adrien from going to look in because she knows how fragile Adrien's mind is, especially right now. However, she also knows him way too well and knows that this probably won't stop him. And it's true. He isn't able to kind of quell his own curiosity, and so he does go in and look in on the mystery patients. It is there, sitting with one of the comatose soldiers, that he finds the vigil soldier who has been supervising his classroom. This is Gennady Richter. He's a young vigil lieutenant who, similar to most soldiers, was raised in military service. His commanding officer was the closest thing he ever had to parents. And apart from a younger sister who does work for the witch hunters and now refuses to speak to him, the other soldiers in his unit are his only family. So when they start to appear in the hospital, comatose, unresponsive, he knows he needs to figure out what's going on. Adrian and Gennady are both shocked when the patient that Gennady was watching suddenly wakes up and, of all things, starts to show signs of having magic, which she never had before. Now, this shouldn't be possible. You either have magic or you don't. It's not something that you develop later in life or that can be given to someone. At least it hasn't been before. Now, when Gennady's unit mate dies suddenly, shortly after waking up from her coma, Adrian and Gennady get even more concerned and curious about exactly what is going on. So they build an unlikely and very tentative alliance to start looking into the patients and trying to figure out how they developed magic, why it sent them into a coma, why they are dying so soon after they awake, and more importantly, if the deaths are natural or helped along. Now, all the while, Adrian is still struggling to keep his flare up at bay, getting more and more treatment to slow the process. It doesn't help that one of the symptoms Adrian has is hallucinations, paranoia, and a break from reality. So when he tries to be honest with both Melise and Casimir about what exactly is happening and what he's trying to figure out, they immediately believe that it is his flare up getting worse and it's all in his mind. So they convince him to let Casimir move in to make sure he doesn't do anything stupid. But the further Gennady and Adrian dig into this conspiracy, the more and more dangerous it gets, and the higher up they realize it goes. They start to see that it's not just the Curia or the magicians who are acting independently, but surprisingly, it seems like the two sides are working together to create something, the result of which is going to be catastrophic for all of Astrum. I have to say, this book was not at all what I expected it to be. However, I did still enjoy it. I think that it's always interesting reading a book with an unreliable narrator, especially one who knows that he is unreliable and at times isn't entirely sure what his own reality is. There's mentions where there's pages where he talks about how he knows that he can't trust his own judgment and his own mind. And I think that provided a really interesting look at the story where, as a reader, you weren't entirely sure if what was happening was actually in his mind or if it was happening. And so that provided just an interesting perspective and an interesting look at the story. I have to say, I did struggle a bit with the world and the system of magic that Nakamura created. As you can tell, there's a lot of terminology, a lot of kind of it felt like this really complicated magical system, and I at times felt that I should have I thought I was missing something, that maybe there was something else I was supposed to have read that kind of introduced you more to the world than this did before. Um, and so that I did struggle with. But that being said, I found the story really engaging. I think the characters were super interesting. They weren't always likable, but they were definitely interesting to read about. I really liked the interactions between Adrian and Gennady, and I think that the author did a really wonderful job of developing those two characters and kind of having their personalities change and evolve and grow as the story went on and as they connected to each other more. There was a ton of nuance to the characters. From what I've read, Nakamura does a really impeccable job of portraying what life is like for someone who's living with bipolar disorder. I was reading some of the reviews, and one of the reviews said, this was from someone who shares the diagnosis, said that they found themselves getting extremely emotional reading some of the most basic parts of the story because of how accurately it portrayed their thinking as a person with bipolar disorder, and that they had never seen so many facets of their own life written down like this. So I think that shows just kind of how accurate the depiction was, and I don't know a lot about bipolar disorder, and so I wasn't necessarily able to see that accuracy, but to kind of hear from someone who also experiences that, I think it was interesting and kind of same idea. I think the small press was able to bring that story and bring that character and um, that kind of particular experience to light more than a bigger press may have been able to. So I would say if you are looking for a fantasy, it is definitely a high fantasy, but it does have a bit more to it. It's higher emotional stakes, very heavy dose of reality thrown in, I think. But I think that it would be a great book for anyone who's looking for a futuristic fantasy with a flawed but sympathetic protagonist and some kind of high intensity moments and adventure thrown in. So that is Cursebreakers by Madeleine Nakamura.
Thank you, Sadie. It's nice to have a representation of some of the smaller presses that does more of the genre fiction too, because there are a lot of them out there, and it's really, really nice to see all the different variety of fantasy and horror and science fiction that are being published by many of the small presses. So thank you for bringing that to our table today. So before I go on with my book, I'd like to do our existential question today, and this was something that I often kind of wonder because we stalk each other on Goodreads here. And it's I always like kind of like, especially sometimes after Keep It Fictional. And yeah, they just talk about this book and then you go look at their rating and you're like, hmm, hmm. How do they decide what the rating is? Because there's some discrepancy between what they said on the show and what they actually rate. So I'm like just very curious, like, and so I want to ask my book friends today, what is your rating system? Like, I know because like Goodreads only give you 5 stars rating, and there's no half star, which I don't like. That annoys me a lot. So I would love to know, sort of from Sadie and from Corinne, what is your rating system? Like, what does that 1 star represent to you, and what does that 5 star represent to you? And what is a 3 star book, for example?
I feel like most of my books get 3 stars. And I think it's because there's no half stars. And so if a book is like 3.5, then I'll give it 3. If a book is like 2.5, then I'll give it 3. And so most just kind of fit in that middle point. This is one of the reasons why I use Storygraph and Goodreads still, because I refuse to give up Goodreads. And that's one of the things I like about Storygraph is that it allows you to do quarter stars. And so you can actually kind of gauge the rating a bit closer to how you actually feel about the book. For me, a 4-star book is if I enjoyed it, and yeah, if I enjoyed it, I wanted to keep reading it. I kind of thought about it when I wasn't reading it. I wanted to go back to it. A 5-star book would be in the rare occasion that I would reread a book. That would be a 5-star book. I do have a handful of them. I think I've probably talked about most of them on the show. But yeah, it takes a lot to do a 5-star rating. I don't know if I've given any this year a 5-star rating yet. And then the odd 1-star rating, it happens. It definitely happens. I think we've talked about this. I can't not finish a book. I struggle to not finish a book. And so it gets a 1-star rating if it would have been a book that, if in my soul I was able to finish book or not finish books, then it would have gotten a 1-star rating. But I forced myself to finish it. So
This is really making me want to go on my Goodreads and see I know what my rating system is, and it's a little bit because I use it both as like an like an internal rating system for myself, but also external. So if I'm using it for work or something like that, and I need a book that, is fine, I know what star rating that means. And so I like Sadie, I'm going to start at the 3-star because I give that a lot, and I'm actually going to borrow a terminology from my friend Maylee's hot chocolate festival rating of because of course we rate everything of what a 3-star means, and it is meets competency. It means that it kind of like had a goal and it set out to do it fairly well. So if I was like grading doctors, I'm like, okay, well, you put the catheter in and you didn't kill anyone. So that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, so a lot of the books that I think are good but don't personally like move me in a big way end up as a 3-star book, because I think kind of what I'm judging it against is like, what did you set out to do? Did you accomplish that? And so that is why I also give out a lot of 2-star reviews, which is essentially you biffed it. Do better. You had so much potential, or you could have made this so much better if you just tried, which I'm sure they did. It sounds very like a personal attack on these authors, but it's often like, you could do better. You could. Someone should have taken you aside and said, hey, you want to rewrite that ending so it makes sense? But no one did, and that's why you get a 2 stars. I do give out a lot of 1-star reviews as well, which is just like, this is unforgivable. This is unforgivable, and you wasted my time. And so 1 star is like, you didn't quite achieve what you meant to do, and you brought me down with you. And I'm angry. A 4-star is meets competency and a little bit more. And it's often that it kind of like elicited some kind of like bigger emotional response to it, or that I think like it is something that will kind of stick with me for a little while longer, that when I put it down I still think about it. Sometimes occasionally I go back and like, what was a 3-star book? I'm like, actually, you know what? Like, because I kept thinking about it for a really long time, I'm actually going to like bump this up to a 4 because it has a little bit of more of an impact. And 5 stars are perfectly perfect in every way. There are books that I think everyone should read. And like, to summarize like the 5-star category, it's like no notes. No notes. You did everything that you meant to do. You did it well. You executed it perfectly. I have no flaws that I can point to and say, well, have you considered that in Act 2, you say that the hammer was on the white table, and then in Act 3, it's on the green table? Have you considered? So yeah, and in many ways, I'm using it kind of like as a tool for work. If a book for me is a 3-star book, I don't have a bad time recommending it, because I'm like, this is fine. This is fine. And if you're looking for this particular story, it might not be a story for me, in that I didn't connect with it, but I think someone else might connect with it because it's competent, because it actually does what it's supposed to do. And yourself, Virginia, I feel like which star are you most stingy with?
I uh like, see, I'm hearing both of you talk. It's like you have like both of you have such like a systematic approach to this, where I'm just like, do I like this or do I not? And it's a very personal thing, to the point. And then I think I used to give more ratings on them, and now I think for me, give it as a book like the Angry Book, I don't rate them. I can't. I just can't. So if you see that sometimes if I don't rate a book, it's because I just like no. Like I put, and because I know it's a personal judgment, right? It's like, just it is a totally personal preference thing. Like, and everybody spend all their time creating a book. I don't, it's for someone else, probably just not for me. So I'm just not gonna rate it. But then that also means that on my own spreadsheet, that's where all the real ratings end up. The actual honest rating is on my spreadsheet, which is not accessible to anyone else. But the front facing, the public facing thing, yeah. But I feel like I also give a lot more 5 stars and 4 stars, and a lot of, like, I think from both of you, I'm very easily be like, oh, this is the best thing in the world. So I do a lot of 5 stars, I find myself. So it's probably like maybe a more generous that way, just because I'm just at that moment, I'm like, this is the best thing. This is so good. And yeah, and I totally understand, because I remember when and you, Corinne, and also Liz, I think, said the same thing about the 3-star books, which is sort of like the books that is not for you, but there's merit to it. See, like I can't judge it that way. Just like like 3 stars is gone. Like for me, it's like like that's fine, like, but I will very rapidly forget about it, kind of thing. So that's yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Arguably, objectively, that BioShock book was a 1-star review, and I stand by that until my dying day.
We have to bring Gabriel back so you can both argue about that.
I think I tried to give them that book because I didn't want it in my house anymore, and I bought that book. I had to buy that book, and I was so furious. 1 star, 1 star. I'm sorry to the author, whoever it was. It was a
John
mess.
Shirley. Poor John Shirley.
John Shirley should have written a better book.
Anyway, well, thank you for like explaining your secrets to your rating system. So now I know. Now I can look at them again when I see your Goodreads and be like, that's what that means. That's what they really think about the book. All right. Well, go ahead, Sadie.
I'm just gonna say, I feel like I have to go to my Goodreads now and make sure that I've actually given the books the ratings that I meant to give them, and I might have to change them.
Yeah,
I know.
find
I
this
was
a
going
thing
through.
like
I was like,
changing, right? Like I don't know. Like sometimes I feel like because I remember one time Fiona was asking me a book, and I'm like, oh yeah, and they saw that I gave it 4 stars, and I'm like, why did I give it 4 stars? I don't remember. And so they were just like, well, you seem to really like it. I'm like, do I? Like, I don't know. Oh.
I stand by all of them looking through them. I'm like, all those 1 stars, I'd do it again. I'd read it again and rate it 1 star again. And all of my 2 stars, I stand by them too. Those books should have been way better. Way better. You don't have any excuse. You're authors.
See, I feel like my lowest ones and my highest ones, I stand by. Like same
Mm.
thing, like my 1 star, my 2 star, definitely my 5 star I do. But it's like the 3 and the 4s. I'm just they could go either 3 or they could go 4 sometimes. And so I never.
Need
I
those
don't
half stars.
disagree.
Really do need the half stars.
No, I think there's no shame in a 3-star review. I think that maybe from like an author's point of view, like they think 3 stars isn't good enough. But for me, like there's no shame in it. It's like you did again, the catheter is inserted. You're fine.
But that's all they've got. They didn't cure anything. They just stick that in.
Yeah, they just did a job. Sometimes that's enough.
Do you round up or round down, Sadie?
It depends on the book. Depends on the book. If it's yeah. See, this is where I think the quarter stars come in. Like if it's a 3.5
Exactly.
slash 3.75, then I'll round
Exactly.
up to 4.
There's a
But if it was like
difference.
closer to like,
Yeah.
This is why I like Storegraph, because there are
There's a
definitely some that I
difference.
gave
Yeah.
3.25 stars to or 3.75 stars
Yeah.
to on Storegraph. Or like if is my mic working? Sorry, I stopped
It
being
is.
able
Yeah.
to hear myself. Okay. There are books where I really, really liked this, but it wasn't quite a 5 star rating. So I'm like, okay, like it was better than a 4 star, but not, yeah. Yeah.
And then if you give it a 5 star, it makes it feels like oh, that's the best book you read, but it's not because
Yes,
it's
I
not
feel like
quite
I have
there.
to like stand behind it no
Yes.
matter what.
Then it's a 4-star book. If it's not a 3-star book and it's not a 5-star book, then it's a 4-star book.
It's better than 4. It's almost
No,
there.
no. If it's a 4, it's a 4. If it's
Yeah.
a 3, if it's a 3, and then it's a 5, it's a 5.
No, I feel like the author should be given credit for just getting so close. Like, how close are you to that elusive 5 star?
Close enough, but you didn't do it. So
That's
it's
why
a 4.
that's why 4.75. That's why you need the
That means
4.75.
absolutely nothing. That means nothing.
4.75 means a
That's
lot to
essentially
us.
gibberish. That's gibberish. 4.75. Come on, you either passed or you failed.
Sadie, have you tried is that do they let you do 5.75? Is that a thing? I've never tried it.
I've never tried it. I don't
I know.
think
I'm very
so.
I wanted
I'm
to
trying
see
to think
if it can
because
get
they'll bring up like
5.75.
all the options just to bug Curry.
Yeah. I'm
You're
gonna try.
essentially saying something is like 125%.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what is it? How is it better than
It was
100%?
so good.
It is so good. Yes,
No.
it's like out of this world good. That's why
And
your
that's a
normal
5.
mathematics can't deal with it, can't handle this. This is how good it is.
No, it's either 100%, which is the line right there. You can't go over it. You can't overachieve what is 100% done. It's like you're filling a cup. Oh, I filled it 110%, so that's so much better. No, then that's not in the cup anymore. That's water on the floor.
That's okay. That means you get more coffee everywhere.
Oh, it's on the floor. You can't suck it up with your mouth.
On the floor of your mind, Corrine. It's on the floor of your mind, just seeping in.
Exactly. It's
taking
everywhere.
over 'cause it's so good.
You can't contain it.
You nonsense people. It's essentially like you're giving a block. A star is a unit. You're either giving 2 of a unit or 3 of a unit. You're not slicing a unit in half because it's Either it is or it isn't.
Right. There are only three of us. That's why we have time to argue today, I guess. All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to go to my 5-star book today.
5-star or 5.25?
It could be
5.25 does not exist. It's only 5
5.7.
or that.
5.75 book today. All right. Well, there's so many great small presses that I want to talk about today. And in the end, I decided to talk about I think the best book I've read so far this year, my 5.75 book. A new to me author, but I think also probably an author new to many readers because this is the first book that I made available in English thanks to the small press and other stories and to translator Brian Robert Moore. And the book is You Bleeding Childhood by Michele Mari. And a bit about the publisher first. This is a small press in the UK, and on their About Us page, they talk about how they try to select carefully, hoping that their books will last the test of time. They aim to push people's reading limits and help them discover authors of adventurous and inspiring writing. And another stories is established in 2010. The founder is Stefan Tobler, who is a translator himself of many contemporary classics by Raju and Nasa, and also, of course, my favorite, my 5.75 star Liz Spector, my current obsession. So books in translation is a big part of Another Stories publishing. And so thanks to this small press, we have access to all these great books from around the world, and such as my book for today. With the author, Michele Mari, this is a acclaimed, award-winning Italian author. He has published 10 books plus some short story and poetry collection. And so there's still lots and lots of books to be published, hint, hint. He is a former professor of Italian literature, and he's also a translator himself. And one of the fun fact I found out about Mari in the translators afterward, which of course endears me even more to him, is that when he was 16 to 17, apparently he has a comic book adaptation of the Cloven Viscount, which he sent to the author, and the author, of course, none other than Italo Calvino, just in case Corinne is not already like boiling mad up here with our Star Talk. So he sent it to Italo Calvino, and Calvino really, really likes it. Wrote back and say how much he enjoyed his adaptation and how he loves the way he like depicts the story. So it's always fun for me, I think, when you learn about these connections between authors that you love. He is credited as sort of from someone who has a general did a general revival of the Gothic and the Fantastic in Italy, to also the split selves that have come to characterize autofiction. And so that's what this book is. It's categorized as an autofiction. So a lot of the narrator in the book is presumably the author himself. And as the title suggested, the theme of many of these stories is about the childhood obsessions, about all the things that you love as a child that you devote yourself to with this single-mindedness, and how all these passions, how they influence you as an adult, how they define you, and all the things that you remember hearing about that you believed in when you were a kid, things that spark your imagination, whether they are true or not. And sort of going back to the title, is the things that are flowing in your blood still, that are bleeding into your childhood, bleeding into your adulthood, basically. And unfortunately, these could be obsessions that you have to give up voluntarily or involuntarily. And again, using the title is like you have like assassinated these obsessions that you have left them dying, but it's like bleeding still today when you think about it. And I think when you're reading these stories, you get this like profound sense of like loss in some way when you look back at these childhood passions that you have, especially in the stories where the narrator is shown as a child, and you can just feel that point of no return when you see everything is just shattered at that moment when you realize something or when something's revealed to you. it's chilling just thinking about these sort of stories, and just how Michele Mari just really did this, like those moments with such a precision, but also with such humor in many, many cases. Most of the stories from here is translated from the collection that is also called You Bleeding Childhood, but there's also two other stories included here. I think the first story really set the tone of this collection. It's called Comic Strips. It's about a professor who finds out that he's soon going to become a father. And so he's staring at his prized comic book collection and he's trying to figure out like what to do with them. At first he was kind of more worried, like is my child going to appreciate them, and are they going to understand them, are they going to realize how cool this is? But then he realized, wait, these comics cannot be shared. They are the flower of my childhood, you see, and they are therefore my essence. So it turned into sort of like, basically from like wondering whether he can share this to like, no, 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 you go find your own collection. These are mine. And he's going to like put them high, high, high up on the top of the shelves or above all those serious literature that he's supposed to be reading now as an adult. And it's just the sort of like at the place of sort of like the high importance for him on those top shelves where nobody can reach. The second story, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, is about a father who is now showing his grown-up son all these toys. And his son is just amazed at all the things that he thought he has lost. His toy gun, his marbles, his book, things that he thought he has left behind, he has lost, things that have been traded maybe or given away to some cousin. He can't believe that they're all in front of him, that it's all there. And the father is showing them one by one, explaining the history of each of them, how he basically took everything back. And the last of these treasures is a teddy bear. A teddy bear that the father said, you were literally eating away at this bear. It was becoming embedded between your ribs, seeping slowly but surely into your bloodstream. With a teddy bear like that, what happened to this? Why is it here now? And the child, the grown-up son, is going to find out what actually happened to this teddy bear. And then another story called The Black Arrow. Black Arrow is a title of a book by Stevenson. And it's about this boy who who spent most of the time with his grandparents. But the father come to visit one day. And the father decides to give him a book. He has a gift for him. It's a book. It's The Black Arrow. And the boy should be super happy because his father doesn't usually give him things. But now he's like in a dilemma because he has already read this book. He has already read this book from his grandfather's collection just recently. He can't tell his father that because his father clearly is so proud of giving him this book. So he has to figure out, well, what to do about this. And as he was staring at the two copies, he realized, wait, the two books have two different covers. Maybe they're two different translations of the same English novel. Maybe they're different. Maybe I can look at it as if like this is a brand new book that I have to read. And then what turns into like sort of this like story about the father and the son turns into this love letter basically to translation, as the narrator kind of examines the two translations, explaining how all the different words have been chosen, how they evoke different atmosphere, how they means different things. We kind of look at what translation does. And of course, at the book, like the story ends with Stevenson's original sentence, which is quite different from the two translations that this person encounters. So it was really, really fun. The other story, which for all of you who do jigsaw puzzles out there, I think you will understand what this story is. This is called Jigsaw Greens. It's about this time the narrator and his mother and their sheer love of doing puzzles. But they're not like just like amateur puzzle makers. They take this very, very seriously. And so the story talks about the search of how they find puzzles that would challenge them and the lengths that they go to and how serious they are about doing their puzzles. And I think for anyone, I don't know, like I know some of my book friends here does puzzles. I don't know how they feel about it, but one of the things that I was just so some of the like the sentences that was on there and explaining what puzzle means to them, is that the most suitable moment to start a new puzzle is when we are overwhelmed with commitments. In the frantic urgency of serious things, of solid things, what a triumph over the world then to dedicate oneself to that scientific squandering of time. But again, for its uselessness to be perfect, the work must necessarily come apart at the very moment when it is completed. And I think that is so true. I don't know about you, but when I finish a puzzle, I just want to take it apart. My husband will be like, oh, why don't you just leave it on the table to look at it? I'm like, I don't need to look at it. It's not about looking at it. At the end, it's about the process of doing the puzzle. Once it's done, who cares? Anyway, so I think some of you may understand that sentiment or not. And my favorite story, I think, is probably called The Soccer Balls of Mr. Curse. It's about the narrator going to a new to a boarding school. And it's not like his favorite thing, school, but he was at least glad that they play football there. But when he was watching his first game, he doesn't understand what is happening because you can see all these boys, they're kicking the balls and they're like with so much speed and so much power. But then once they get near to the goal, then suddenly they just give this wimpy little kick into the net or whatever. And he's like, what just happened? Did you run out of steam? Like, why are you doing this? And that's when he realized that they all have been trained not to kick it too hard because they don't want to kick the ball into the yard next door, which belongs to Mr. Curse. There is no way, once the ball gets over there, that you can get it back. Even the headmistress have tried to go over there and try to get the ball back, so you can never get them back. And so this boy realizes that's what's happening, that you can't really play soccer properly. And so one day he decides, nope, we are going to go get the balls back. But what he sees in the yard of Mr. Curse will haunt him forever and will haunt us readers also forever. I just absolutely love this collection. It is so fantastic, in many sense of the word. Even though you are at many point you be like you'd be sad about like kind of like innocence lost in some ways, like when all these you see all these people have to give up what they love so much, but also at the same time you realize that someone is keeping tabs. Not all is lost, perhaps. And I love how like this is about childhood obsessions, and in one of the interview, Michele Mari also said that like the highest form of literature is the kind that surrenders to its own obsessions, and he definitely did. So I cannot recommend this collection enough. There's so many more stories I want to tell about, but I hope you will go and discover it. And after you finish this excellent short story collection, you can move on to his first novel, which has been translated into English and was published in the beginning of the year, also by And Other Stories, and also translated by Brian Robert Moore, also that one. So you can check that out also. So again, this is You Bleeding Childhood by Michele Mari, translated by Brian Robert Moore. And thank you again to And Other Stories for bringing these great offers to us.
I just want to update everybody. Yes, you can give a book a 5.75 rating on Storycraft. And also, Fiona also uses half and quarter stars when they are rating books. So I just think that that is important to bring to the table as well.
Thank you, Sadie, for verifying that. Thank you. Oh, see, like I've kind of switched back to Goodreads just because I feel like that's where all my history was. Like I've been using it for so long. But like maybe I need to go back to the other one. Now that I know 5.75 is possible. All right, okay. We're, we're just gonna let Corinne.
I didn't try to save it though, so I don't know if it'll let you save 5.75, but
okay.
it does give you the option to select them.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah, because it just
I'll
has like your stars, your like full stars, and then your quarter stars, and so you can.
You've made math meaningless. You've made the stars meaningless. You've made the rating system meaningless.
It's fine.
No rebuttal? No.
It's fine. I think if you can give the book your maximum love to make sure that people realize how good this book is, I am willing to defy whatever math principles that are out there. It's okay with me. Anyway, well, thank you to my book friends, Sadie and Corinne, for bringing all these small presses books to us. As Coffee House Press said, adventurous readers, arts enthusiasts, there you go, Corinne, community builders, and risk takers, join us. So pick up a book by a small press this month and this year and discover the world of stories, as they say, beyond the obvious. So thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.